In the royal court of the Kingdom of Valoria, laughter was more than just a sound. It was a delicate currency that could open doors, mend rifts, and sometimes seal one's fate. I was Fabian, the king's jester, a fool dressed in motley, with a cap decorated by bells that jingled as I moved, announcing my presence in a kingdom of lords, ladies, and whispered intrigues. My role was simple yet profound, to entertain the court with a mix of humor and wisdom. Every joke, every jest, had a purpose to distract from the harsh realities of life and to offer a momentary escape from the burdens of nobility. It was a dangerous dance, one where the line between laughter and offense was precariously thin. As I stood before the king and his courtiers during a grand feast, I felt the weight of their expectations. The banquet, adorned with sumptuous dishes and goblets filled with fine wine, was a spectacle of wealth and power. I launched into a comedic tale, weaving playful jabs and clever observations, my words flowing with the rhythm of the moment. Then came the moment that would haunt Mimi's playful jest about the queen. It was a trivial quip intended to elicit laughter, but I misjudged the tension in the room. The king, a brooding man with a fury that could ignite storms, furrowed his brow and turned a shade of crimson. The laughter that echoed moments before vanished, leaving a chilling silence. The king's voice boomed, shaking me to the core. "You dare mock my queen, fool? Your tongue has woven a noose around your neck." Panic surged through me as I tried to retrace my words, desperate for forgiveness. But his court was unforgiving. My fate, as a jester, once filled with privilege and laughter, became entwined with a cruel punishment. The guards dragged me away, their grip tight around my arms as the echoes of my last jest echoed in my mind. I could already feel the cold embrace of the dungeon as they transported me from the light of the court to the depths of despair. In those dark, damp confines, surrounded by the stench of despair, I had ample time to reflect. I was no mere entertainer. I was a mirror to society, and society could not bear the reflection. Jesters have always walked a fine line, allowing the truth to emerge through laughter, yet the truth can often be a dangerous weapon. I thought back on my life, on how I had found joy in weaving tales of folly that brought smiles to even the sternest of faces. Yet, here I was paying the price for my irreverence. As days turned into nights, I languished in that cell, contemplating the cost of my humor. I remembered my humble beginnings, born in a bustling market, where I learned to survive by charming passers-by with my wit and performance. My skills were honed through laughter and applause, a currency more valuable than gold in a realm where favors were fleeting. I had earned my place in the king's court, but the exercise of boldness in jest had become my downfall. Then a glimmer of hope arrived when the queen, a woman of grace and wisdom, intervened on my behalf. She had always appreciated my humor, often hiding her laughter behind a delicate fan during my performances. With her influence and compassion, she petitioned the king, arguing that every fool has a place, and that a jester's role is to speak what others cannot. It was a remarkable risk for her to take, and I could only pray that her words would echo in a heart hardened by the anger of my foolish jest. Her request summoned emotions within the king that I had never thought possible. Moments later, I was pulled from the shadows of my cell, terror mixed with relief as I emerged into the light, disheveled yet hopeful. Standing before the king, I braced myself for judgment. His eyes told a different tale, a mixture of fury and contemplative thought. "You shall not hang for your foolishness, Jester," he proclaimed with a stern voice. "Instead, consider this a lesson in restraint." I bowed deeply, gratitude flooding my heart. Restored to my place in the court, I learned a valuable lesson about balance. My humor evolved. I no longer allowed every jest to flow freely from my lips. Instead, I began to tread carefully, gauging the mood of the room, understanding when to speak and when to remain silent. The court became a delicate tapestry of power dynamics, and I realized that my role was not merely to entertain, but to provide insight into the world that surrounded us. My connection with the Queen deepened, as she often confided in me. I became her sounding board, a companion who balanced her royal burdens with laughter. As I continued my journey, I reflected on how easily laughter could turn to sorrow. The legacy of jesters is one of survival and resiliency, a testament to the strength found in humor even in the face of adversity. The persona of a fool is often misunderstood. We are not simply jesters in a foolish costume, but guardians of the truth, wielding humor with care. Each performance became a nuanced approach to address the weight of the crown and the complexities that lay beneath. The captivating stories of jesters have transcended time, resonating through the ages as we consider those brave enough to speak truths veiled in laughter. It was through this resilience that I ultimately grasped my place in the world, realizing that every performance had the power to inspire change, to provoke thought, and to convey a message far deeper than the surface of humor. As my legacy as a jester continued, I marvel at how laughter can serve as a bridge between hearts, breaking down walls and forging connections. It is a powerful tool, capable of transforming relationships and fostering understanding. In a world driven by ambition and rivalry, a single jest can illuminate the shared humanity that links us all. My story, woven with threads of humor and humility, serves as a reminder that laughter is not merely a form of entertainment. It is a language of compassion that echoes through the very fabric of society. Today, as I speak these words before you through the lens of history, I invite you to remember the power of laughter. It is a powerful antidote to life's more grim realities, and it can inspire resilience even in the darkest of times. If you enjoyed my tale and want to uncover more stories from medieval times, filled with intrigue and lessons from the past, don't forget to subscribe to the Medieval Stories channel. Join us for more captivating tales that remind us of the power of history, humor, and the human heart. Until next time, may you find joy in laughter and wisdom in every jest. As I stood once again in the King's Court, the halls now merely echoing the faintest remnants of my past folly, I found myself pondering the essence of my role as a jester. It was not merely about clad in bright colors and performing silly dances. It was about navigating the complexities of human emotion and the intricate web of power that enveloped the castle. The court was a realm of constant change, fluctuating between revelry and tension, and within this dance of life and death, I had carved a unique place. My bond with the Queen grew stronger, and I began to understand the scars that adorned her heart. In royal courts, everything seemed to shimmer and shine, but behind the golden tapestries was a world filled with treachery, machinations, and whispered shadows. The vulnerability she allowed me to glimpse became an honored secret, and as I crafted my performances, I infused them with the depth of our shared understanding. Laughter isn't merely an escape. It's a healing balm that can soothe the wounds inflicted by ambition and rivalry. There were moments of levity when laughter filled the grand hall. I grasped the power of timing, The weight of silence before the punchline was almost palpable. It transformed the energy in the room, drawing in the courtiers, and at times, even the stoic king. I learned to read their moods, sensing when my jests would spark merriment or when they could cause offense. It was a perilous balance to maintain. The king himself became a more complex figure in my eyes. His temper could ignite at the slightest provocation, yet there were moments of vulnerability that flickered across his stern visage. I witnessed firsthand the burdens he carried our kingdom resting heavily on his shoulders. With time, I began to intertwine my jests with the king's own insecurities during our encounters. It transformed our interactions into something more profound than merely a jester performing for a king. It became a symbiotic relationship where humor acted as both shield and sword. In my performances, I carefully sketched parables of leadership that, while filled with humor and play, carried stronger messages about justice and fairness. The court needed to hear the truths tucked away under layers of pomp and opulence. I began to deliver subtle critiques under the guise of mirth, addressing the corruption and greed that often threatened to complicate the nobility's reign. The jests, when crafted delicately, would resonate in ways profound and far-reaching. There were instances when a particular jest would rouse not just laughter but contemplation, the kind of laughter that would echo even after the hall grew silent. It was in these moments I learned the true strength of a jester's art. It had the power to instigate change, to make people think, to pull the veil back on false pretenses. My role evolved from a mere entertainer to an essential advisor cloaked in fool's garments. This was something I embraced wholeheartedly, understanding the responsibility that came with such influence. Through every jest, there were eyes watching and listening, those who had once taken my place as jesters, those now vying for power within the court. They saw my growth, my newfound strength, and they were drawn to the support I had garnered in the royal family. The guards, once brusque with me, became respectful, often sharing laughter with me during quiet moments. Yet, with every change came jealousy, and I could feel its presence lurking, ready to pounce should I misstep. In the quiet hours of the night, I found solace in my cell, where once despair had clouded my thoughts. I began to write, jotting down my observations of life within the court, of the tales that unfolded around me. I pondered the nature of power, how it shifted hands like a well-passed baton, and how laughter often concealed deeper truths. My stories came alive on the page, fueled by the lessons of my past and the hopes for a brighter future. The vision of a man in motley became one of strength instead of folly. Through my tales, I honored those who, unlike me, had found their voices silenced in fear. I wanted the world to realize that humor could be revolutionary. It could break the chains of oppression, and I intended to make my mark. My performances evolved as I integrated poetry and intricate storytelling, blurring the lines between entertainment, education, and revolution. My name began to resonate not only as a jester, but as a voice for the forgotten. As summer faded and the chill of autumn began to settle within the castle walls, I felt a shift in my power. I was no longer viewed solely as a fool, but as a conduit for change. The whisper of my name danced on the lips of the courtiers. I knew my influence spread beyond the royal court. I could feel momentum shift, and within it, I sensed that my journey was far from over. As the years rolled on, the kingdom itself favored a new vision of leadership own that could be shifted through moments of laughter and reflection. I found myself standing often beside the king in moments when he sought counsel, throwing in a jest here and a serious word or two there, influencing decisions that could echo throughout Valoria. Every performance Every interaction had crafted a new legacy echoing through the ages. But with the rise of my influence came peril. New players entered the game, ambitious and shrewd, who resented this jester who dared change the course of tradition. I could sense the tension mounting. From the sidelines, shadows watched and calculated. They sought to undermine the queen's goodwill and influence, sowing seeds of doubt among the king's most trusted advisors. One evening, a banquet was held, lavishly adorned with gems and golden platters. The energy buzzed thickly, an electric mix of excitement and trepidation. It would be different tonight. I sensed it. I took a deep breath, donning the familiar motley with a sense of purpose. Tonight, I would speak not just to entertain, but to weave threads of unity among wary hearts. As I stepped into the light, I could almost feel the collective holding of breath, waiting for my words to emerge. Each laugh during my performance invigorated me, and with every line delivered, I felt their eyes sharpen, gleaning not merely entertainment, but deeper interpretations within the folds of my humor. However, I quickly realized that enemies had cloaked themselves among friends. Conversations waned into whispers, and I could sense agitation swirling beneath the surface. An unnamed tension hung heavy in the air, and I was determined to address it, to calm the brewing storm. I took a moment to look around, meeting gazes filled with approval as well as resentment. It was time to address the elephant in the room. With a determined heart, I crafted my words carefully, embracing the balance of jest and candor that had become my hallmark. I shared stories of unity, of the strength found in laughter shared among those of differing stations, reminding all that the joy of the court belonged to every man and woman, from the king down to the most humble servant. Yet, my words may have struck rather too close to home for those who had been scheming. Just as the mood began to lighten, a sharp voice interrupted. And what wisdom does a jester hold when the crown itself is at stake? The king shot a glance of warning, but the question lingered on the air, tainted with challenge. I had a choice to make. To shrink back into silence or to rise in fortitude, my tongue the sharpened weapon it had become. I chose the latter. I straightened my spine and locked eyes with the accuser. Wisdom is never held by title alone, I replied, my heart racing but steady. It lies in understanding the balance of power and the responsibilities that come with it. My role as a jester, though humble, allows me a perspective often untouched by ambition. Perhaps it is the very foolishness that grants me insight into the hearts of men. A hush fell over the hall, breaths held, as they drew closer to the conversation. Perilous territory had been breached. The room buzzed with the electricity of rebellion. Would I sustain my ground, or would the shadows take me? The tension held, an unbroken silence, pivoting like a knife at the edge of provocation. Every heartbeat felt like it echoed within walls that once promised safety. It was in that moment I realized how laughter had transformed us all. Perhaps it could also bind our hearts in times of dissent. Yet, the fruits of rebellion are both sweet and bitter. With every jest spoken, I sensed the roots of animosity digging deeper into the hearts of those who saw me not as an ally, but as a threat. The next clear breath I took brought resolution, a call to action that would inspire unity outside the walls of mere jest. And as I wove tales of triumph through humor, I vowed to myself that I would leave a legacy of strength born through laughter, a testament not just of folly but of possibility. The battle for the court did not rest solely with swords, but with words equally sharp as blades. It was a fight worth pursuing, a legacy forged in the fires of laughter, and if the shadows wished to take it from me, they would have to break me first. As the evening wore on and laughter mingled with uncertainty, I recognized that my journey as a jester was far from complete. It was a tapestry woven with sacrifice, resilience, and hope for a brighter tomorrow. After all, in the pursuit of truth and unity, humor would always remain my ally. If you felt the weight of my story today, if you found some glimmer of truth within this tapestry of jest and resilience, join us. Subscribe to the Medieval Stories channel, where more tales of power, triumph, and laughter await you. Discover how laughter can transcend even the heaviest shadows. Until next time, may your life be filled with joy and wisdom, and never underestimate the strength of a fool in motley. As the banquet concluded, the air remained thick with a sense of impending change. I could feel the weight of eyes, both approving and skeptical upon me. It was a turning point, an awakening not just for me, but for everyone in that hall who had remained silent. The evening's performances had served as both entertainment and a call to action, a reminder that laughter can be a catalyst for transformation. But it was clear that not all welcomed my message. In the days that followed, the king summoned me again. The hall, once filled with laughter, now resonated with hushed whispers as I approached the throne. I had perceived changes amongst the members of the court, alliances shifting with the wind, ambitions surfacing, and rivalries deepening. As I knelt before the king, I sensed his uncertainty, the flicker of doubt in his usually steadfast gaze. "Fabian," he began, his voice strained, "you have stirred the hearts of the court with your jests. Yet, you must tread carefully. Not all who laugh alongside you will be allies. Be wary of the shadows that lurk behind smiles." His warning hung in the air, a heavy reminder that even in the brightest court, darkness could fester. I nodded, realizing that my role as a jester had evolved beyond mere entertainment. I had become a confidante voice for the people. I could no longer afford to act solely as a fool. Time passed, and with it came the realization that my influence was growing ever more precarious. Each gathering felt charged with tension as jealous rivals plotted to undermine my newfound standing. They whispered behind closed doors, attempting to tarnish my reputation and diminish my role within the court. I had unknowingly thrown a gauntlet, and it beckoned retaliation. Yet, because I was a fool, I had the gift of perspective, the ability to see through barrels of resentment, to offer humor like a bomb. I took to careful observation, noting every raised eyebrow and every envious glance. It wasn't enough to just entertain. I had to be strategic. I crafted my jests with an adeptness that spoke to the heart of my audience while avoiding the sharp edges of rivalry. On one occasion, I devised a plan. A grand contest of Witan event that would invite lords and ladies to showcase their cleverness through displays of humor. It was a calculated risk, but I believed it might temporarily unify the court by pitting us against the true adversaries of indifference and vanity, encouraging a collective laughter that would drown out divisive whispers. Word spread, and anticipation filled the air. For days, courtiers prepared their entries, hoping to impress the king and the queen. The atmosphere pulsed with energy, as jests flew like arrows at targets, hitting their marks with precision. Laughter began to bubble up in the midst of preparations, and I felt hope linger in the hearts of those who had previously kept silent. The night of the contest arrived. The main hall was transformed into a vibrant display of colors, and camaraderie banners fluttered overhead. and the tables brimmed with festive fare. As I welcomed the guests into the arena of wit, I took a moment to appreciate the beauty of what laughter could bring. People who had once been stony-faced now gathered, united by humor. Yet, amid the excitement, my heart raced with trepidation. I knew the stakes were higher than mere laughter. The night would serve as the tipping point for my standing within the court. During my opening performance, I launched into a playful critique on the art of jesting itself, tossing out jabs at myself while cleverly weaving in lessons on the power of unity and strength through shared laughter. As I finished, the crowd erupted in applause. Encouraged by their laughter, I pressed onward, showcasing the talents of my fellow contestants. Humor flowed freely. It wasn't long before the court became a symphony of retorts and unexpected punchlines, forging bonds that spanned the chasms of high and low status. As each jest unfolded, I felt emboldened. I orchestrated the event, allowing the laughter to soar to heights unseen. The thrill of our collected voices reverberated against the walls, pushing back against the darkness that threatened to take root. It was the unity I had craved, the laughter I had sought. Yet, the competition was not without its adversaries. A faction of discontented courtiers remained lingering like a storm cloud overhead, and it was they who would rise to challenge the spirit of the evening. When the applause and laughter peaked, a brave lord stepped forward, his voice laced with mockery. "What good is a jester who fears the shadows?" I asked. "Show us your cunning, fool. Can mere laughter triumph over the true strength of royal blood?" His words, laced with envy, pierced the atmosphere like a dagger. The laughter that had staged a grand symphony suddenly stilled, and the palpable tension returned. The challenge had ignited the fire beneath the calm surface. As I met his gaze, weighing the words carefully that would emerge next. "Ah, true strength lies not in one's blood or title, but in the ability to rise above fear and embrace laughter instead. Does one not find power in joy?" I countered, letting the foundations of my role as a jester rise to the forefront. Resilient laughter erupted from those gathered as they wrestled with the Lord's challenge. Sensing the momentum shift in my favor, I engaged in a verbal spar, weaving elements of jest and insight into the very fabric of my retorts. The words flowed, charming those who hungered for brilliance in the face of arrogance, drawing even the king's laughter from his stern visage. The contest wore on, with each performance revealing more than mere talent. We unmasked layers of prejudice, revealing shared humanity. The walls that once deprived us of connection began to crumble as we found humor in our vulnerabilities. As the night progressed, laughter emerged as a balm opening hearts and shining light in the shadows amongst us. In that moment, I realized the power of laughter to transcend enmity, a tool stronger than swords, more binding than allegiances formed through fear. The energy shifted, weaving through the hall like a palpable entity, and I understood my purpose clearer than ever, to remind us all that a kingdom united through laughter could overcome even the darkest of shadows. The night culminated in a flurry of witty exchanges, the laughter ricocheting off walls that had previously echoed with whispers of distrust. But as the celebrations reached their zenith, the Lord's challenge loomed heavy, both a threat and a catalyst. I grasped the moment delicately, letting the very essence of jest weave in and out of our gathering. As the festivities began to wind down and the laughter settled, we paused, facing the reality of the kingdom ahead. The contest of wit had served its purpose. It reminded us of the weight our voices carried when combined and unleashed. I stood atop the dais, surrounded by laughter and thought. Within the depths of youthful ambition, I felt the walls of foolery begin to shatter. Every jest thumped against the shadows, dispersing the doubt that had lingered. Though my journey as a jester was fraught with risk, I knew I had a choice. I could remain within the confines of traditional foolishness, or step forth with the shadows at my back, leading vibrance with all contained within my heart. With that thought, I extended an invitation urging the court not just to join in laughter, but to engage in the realization that our collective strength lies in our unity. I ignited a spark of hope as I beckoned nobility to step forward with me, inviting them to wield humor not just as a tool of mockery, but as a weapon against injustice, an antidote to fear. If my story resonates with you, if you feel the pulse of this medieval journey and understand the power of joy and unity, then come forth and join us at Medieval Stories. Subscribe to our channel, where we unveil tales from the past that celebrate laughter's strength and the human spirit. Walk with us through forgotten times and rediscover how the echoes of history shape our laughter today. Until next time, may your life be filled with joyous memories and courage to create the change you wish to see in the world. The weeks that followed the contest became a whirlwind of transformation within the court. With every passing day, laughter grew louder and the camaraderie among the nobles intensified. I had ignited a fire within the hearts of those who lurked in the shadows, and together we began to reshape the very fabric of our kingdom. However, as the bright flames of unity flickered and danced, I was acutely aware that there were still those who resented this newfound spirit. The factions of discontent grew restless, plotting in secrecy, conspiring to diminish the influence I had inadvertently accumulated. They viewed my rise not as an opportunity for unity, but as a threat to their stagnant hold on power. Whispers of subterfuge floated through the corridors of the castle as I navigated the dangers of becoming a beacon in a court that had long been plagued by trepidation and jealousy. During one fateful evening, the air crackled with anticipation as I prepared for a gathering at the royal banquet. The king had summoned nobles from neighboring lands, and the purpose of the event was shrouded in secrecy. I sensed both excitement and anxiety among the courtiers, many of whom now considered me not just a jester, but a pivotal figure in the court's recent uplift. The stakes felt higher than ever, and I could almost hear the whispers spiraling in the darkened corners, brewing ill toward me. As I entered the banquet hall, adorned with lavish decorations, I took a moment to absorb the ethereal glow of flickering candles, casting long shadows against stone walls. The atmosphere buzzed with laughter and conversation, but I understood that beneath the facade of revelry lay an undercurrent of tension. My eyes were drawn to an inconspicuous figure, seated at the far end of the table, Lord Talan, the very noble whose initial challenge had ignited the tensions that still simmered within the court. He sat with a serpentine smile, an aura of calculated charm veiling a scheming mind. With the king's entrance, the hall grew silent. As he took his seat at the head of the table, I knew my role was once again to keep spirits high, to forge bonds through jest in the face of uncertainty. I sprang into action, drawing laughter from the courtiers as I spun tales that intertwined wit with absurdity. Each jest I crafted served a greater purpose. It would guide us toward understanding, a shared laughter that diluted the animosity held by some. Lords and ladies, I began, projecting my voice across the hall. "Do you not think our esteemed king must share the throne with a most magnificent fool? For he rules with wisdom, and I bring laughter." The applause erupted, and I felt emboldened. But I also felt the weight of those who silently brooded. With each clever retort I shared, I danced on the thin line between acceptance and resentment, but I refused to retreat into silence. My jests became increasingly pointed, subtly calling for unity, celebrating the beauty in our differences, while conveying that strength lay within our shared humanity. Yet, as the evening progressed, the shadows of malcontent deepened. Lord Talan's smile never faltered, but I could feel his piercing gaze as it bore down upon me. He had grown weary of my influence, and I sensed the malignancy of his intentions. The tension became palpable when he stood up, glass in hand, proposing a toast. "To our illustrious king and his jester," he declared, the sweetness in his tone laced with poison. "May they continue to entertain us with their antics, but let us not forget that even the foolish must know their place." A hush fell over the gathering, and I felt all eyes upon me. The barb was obvious, but I could not let it land. Summoning the strength I had cultivated, I raised my own glass, a grin stretching across my face. But dear Lord Talan, even the noblest titles shall wilt against the laughter that stems from honesty. Shall we toast, not just to kings and jesters, but to all who dare to dream truly and without guile? The laughter returned, nervously at first, but then grew louder as jesters and lords alike joined in, the echo reverberating off the stone walls. But the tension remained, swirling in the air thickly, as I caught a glimpse of Talan's expression fury masked by forced cheerfulness. The banquet continued into the night, filled with songs and dances, yet I could not shake the feeling that a storm brewed on the horizon. My sense of camaraderie, of joy, began to feel strained. I would look over my shoulder, every chuckle that rang through the hall tinged with uncertainty. Days passed, marked by an ever-increasing tension. I felt the need for reflection. The laughter that had once flowed freely began to constrict under a veil of rivalry. I sought refuge in the courtyard gardens, stolen moments alone where sunlight filtered through the leaves, casting scattered patterns on the ground. Here, I found clarity amidst the chaos. It was during these quiet moments of solitude that I began to confront the reality of my position. My rise had forged new alliances, yes, but it had also sparked discontent. My role as the king's confidant had garnered attention, and many sought to displace me. There were whispers of rebellion, rumors of efforts to discredit my influence. I had inadvertently put a target on my back, raising ire among those who once considered jests trivial. It was during one of these reflective moments that I began to write again, pouring my thoughts onto parchment. I wove tales of unity and strength, crafting narratives that would remind me of my purpose not merely to amuse but to uplift. I penned verses about the burden of a jester, the dance of wit and humility, the delicate balance of power and laughter. Finally, an idea began to form a possibility that could serve as a focal point for all our strengths. A grand council of Noblestone that would allow the voices of every house, every rank, to convene. It could become a gathering for open dialogue, where laughter could reign free without threat of retribution. Through this, I envisioned a platform for unity and opportunity to tackle the grievances that had lain dormant, a chance for the crown to offer assurance, and for the mist that clouded our kingdoms to lift. I shared my proposition with the king, who viewed it with a mix of skepticism and hope. "A council of laughter, you say?" he mused, stroking his beard. "You believe we can quell discord with jest?" "Aye, my liege, for while laughter may seem light-hearted, it possesses strength. These gatherings can be where grievances become hopes. Let them spill forth in jest, place a playful burden on our nobles, and allow humor to bind our disagreements." The king contemplated my idea, and I could see the flickers of doubt wash away as he envisioned a new path forward. Together, we set the date and sent out invitations. The day of the council arrived amid a flurry of excitement. The great hall, adorned with fresh flowers and banners, pulsed with energy as nobles from across the region gathered. Upon entering, every face was awash with curiosity and perhaps a hint of wariness. As I took center stage, the weight of the moment sank in. This was a chance to pave a new path toward unity. "Esteemed nobles," I proclaimed, my voice echoing across the hall. "Today, we gather not solely as lords and ladies, but as individuals seeking to bridge divides. Welcome to the Council of Laughter." With that proclamation, I carefully orchestrated a series of playful engagements, inviting participants to share stories of mischief from their domains. Moments of folly turned triumph. The laughter soon flowed, the gathering taking on a joyous spirit that I had hoped for. As my fellow nobles opened up, stories spilled forth tales that struck chords of familiarity and camaraderie. Their barriers began to dissolve, and what started as a council transformed into a celebration of shared humanity. Even Lord Talan, who had once stood as my adversary, could not ignore the spirit of the gathering. The atmosphere shifted, revealing support instead of hostility, and the laughter that filled the hall became our greatest weapon to combat the shadows. With every jest, every shared memory, we crafted a tapestry of unity and trust, scattered threads of dissent replaced by colorful bonds of friendship. Yet, as the council reached its height, I remained acutely aware that outside the safety of our laughter, shadows stirred. As the echoes of joy danced throughout the castle, I sensed that our triumph was not yet secure. We remained vulnerable to those who resolved to undermine this newfound bond. No sooner had I taken a breath of relief than a figure emerged from the peripheries of the council, his face half hidden beneath a hood. The moment collapsed, laughter stilling palpably as I faced the source of unease. The figure approached, and the murmurs swelled with curiosity and caution, an enigmatic presence amidst the joyful assembly. As the cloaked figure drew near, the tension returned, curling its fingers around our revelry. It became clear that this was no casual guest. I could feel eyes throughout the hall sharpen, drawn to this newfound presence. "Who dares interrupt the Council of Laughter?" I demanded, struggling to keep my voice steady, a flicker of uncertainty sparking in my heart. The figure lowered their hood, revealing a woman, her eyes flickering with a mix of intensity and sadness. "I come not to spread darkness, but to bring a warning," she declared, her voice steady yet haunting. The council fell into a heavy hush. Even the harshest of critics could feel the weight of her words. I sensed it before she spoke, an impending storm that threatened to rip through our fragile unity. "I have seen the shadows grow, and they conspire to consume your brightness," she continued, her gaze sweeping across the assembly. "They wish to remove you, to sever the ties you have forged. Laughter is powerful, yet the envy it ignites can be just as compelling. Should you not act, this council of jest may turn to a battlefield of discord. Her words sent chills racing down my spine. I was reminded of how quickly the tides of fate could shift, how the machinations of rivals could undo even the strongest bonds if left unattended. "Be wary, dear friends," she warned, her voice echoing as if carried by the winds of fate. "For laughter can be a fleeting light amidst the shadows, but it cannot banish them alone." The hall erupted in a cacophony of murmurs, emotions swinging wildly between fear and resolve. I stood before them, feeling the weight of her warning settle upon my shoulders. In that moment, the council transformed. What had begun as a celebration became a call to arms, an imperative to confront the darkness that lingered on the outskirts of our newfound unity. "Indeed, laughter is merely the flicker of a flame," I proclaimed, holding my ground amidst the gathering storm. "Yet we are the caretakers of that flame, and together we can forge a blaze that will illuminate all of Valoria. We shall not cower in fear of shadows, nor allow envy to dictate our bonds. Let us strengthen our resolve." I sensed the transformation within the crowd as fear was replaced by determination. Every noble seemed to rise, nodding in agreement, acknowledging the fires of change dancing within them. The council had become more than just a gathering. It evolved into a rallying cry against the shadows that threatened to engulf us. Through our laughter, we began to understand that unity was built on resilience, standing together when faced with adversity, bolstered by the strength of shared joy. I turned back to the woman, gratitude filling my heart. "Thank you for coming forth. Your warning has ignited a fire within us. We shall not be content to fade into whispers. We will stand together as a beacon against the darkness." And with that declaration, the council ignited into fervent discussions and plans for alliance, solidifying bonds and rallying around the laughter we had cultivated. The shadows that had threatened to snuff out our light were instead met with collective voices united in song, laughter, and a determination to protect one another. As the council came to a close, I reflected on how laughter had woven itself into the tapestry of our strength, transforming adversaries into allies and enemies into friends. Each jest had built a bridge, allowing conversations to flow freely without barriers. Though the road ahead remained fraught with challenges, we had confronted the darkness. I had begun to embrace the role not simply as a fool, but as a guidea beacon for those who sought solace in laughter and understanding. As I left the hall, I welcomed the unfamiliar sense of purpose flooding my heart. We had transformed laughter into a tool of empowerment, and I, as its humble bearer, would continue to safeguard our unity, no matter the cost. Let us march forward into the future, confident that our laughter can pierce through the shadows and create a world where joy reigns eternal. If you find yourself stirred by the heart of this medieval tale, stand with me. Join us at the Medieval Stories channel. Subscribe and uncover more tales of resilience, laughter, and the bonds that hold us all together. Let us walk these paths through history as we illuminate the shadows with the laughter of today. In the days that followed the council, the atmosphere at the castle buzzed with a renewed sense of purpose and camaraderie. Nobles who had once eyed each other with suspicion now shared meals and laughter, united by the echo of that fateful gathering. I could feel the palpable shift. Our collective laughter had sparked something greater, a movement that transcended titles and lineage, a promise to stand together against the shadows. However, with each passing day, the vigilance that began to follow the council also grew. The presence of shadows did not dissipate with merriment. Instead, it morphed into a lurking threat. I frequently gathered with the king and queen, brainstorming tactics to maintain our newfound unity, while remaining wary of the discontent that bubbled just beneath the surface. The queen, in particular, began to take on a more proactive role. Her compassion for her people drove her, and she basked in this resurgence of laughter that had rolled through the court. "We have sparked something precious, Fabian," she said during one of our late-night discussions. "But it is fragile. We must nurture it. Our subjects need to see that their laughter holds power, a force of unity." Her determination galvanized me. I sought to spread our message beyond Castle Wolstow, the villages that surrounded us. We began crafting performances that showcased tales of hope and resilience, stories that intertwined the themes of joy and strength. The goal was to reach the heart of Valoria, to include every citizen in this movement and fortify our kingdom's spirit. Plans were set in motion to travel beyond the castle, to far-reaching corners of the kingdom where laughter had been replaced by hardship and distrust. With the backing of the Queen and the King's royal decree, we organized a series of festivals, calling them Days of Laughter. We would travel from village to village, sharing stories, performances, and laughter, rekindling hope in the hearts of those who had long been forgotten. The first event unfolded in the village of Eldridge, nestled by a glistening stream. As we arrived, we were greeted by a mix of eager faces and skeptical eyes. I stood at the center, taking in the scenery of cobblestone streets filled with simple homes and the air carrying the sweet aroma of baked bread. But behind the smiles, I sensed an undercurrent of pain. "Welcome, dear friends," I called, launching into a routine that had grown familiar, spinning tales tinted with humor to break the tension. As the performance unfolded, I watched as eyes lit up, laughter erupted, and the warmth of joy began to spill through the audience like a long overdue embrace. Yet, the work did not end there. Once the laughter faded, I turned to the villagers, inviting them to share their stories of grief and struggle. This was not merely about entertainment, it was about connection. I emphasized the importance of their voices being heard, and the power our shared experiences held, reinforcing that they were no longer alone in their hardships. As individuals stepped forward to share their burdens, I began weaving their tales into a narrative of hopier tapestry of resilience threaded with humor. Through heartfelt laughter and shared tears, I felt a profound shift. New friendships blossomed amid the struggles, and a collective promise emerged on to uplift every voice in the community, no matter how small. They began to see the potential of their laughter, a weapon against despair, and the weight of sorrow felt just a bit lighter. The days of laughter continued to take root, blossoming through various villages across Valoria. Each gathering morphed into a celebration of unity each face, reflecting a spark of hope that we cultivated together. The laughter echoed beyond the village thresholds and reached far into the heart of the kingdom. As the seasons changed, our movements began to weave their way into the very fabric of Valoria. However, I could not ignore the shadows still lurking, the whispers of discontent that grew more pronounced as our influence spread. The rivals we had faced in the court still watched from the sidelines, eager to regain their lost power. It became evident that they viewed our days of laughter as a threat to their control, and so their whispers transformed into conspiracies, sowing seeds of doubt among the nobles. Murmurs began to circulate. Some nobles voiced concerns that an initiative meant to bring unity could unexpectedly empower commoners, and disrupt the established hierarchy. Jealousy thrummed beneath the surface as the noble houses began to falter under the weight of change, each represented by a figure who clung tightly to their status and privilege. On one fateful afternoon, I returned to the court feeling invigorated, my head filled with visions of the laughter we had sparked in Eldridge. Yet, upon entering the throne room, I could sense an atmosphere pregnant with tension. The nobles sat clustered in a tight semicircle, their voices rising in a tide of concern as I approached. "Fabian," Lord Talan called out, his tone dripping with feigned sincerity. "We must discuss the repercussions of your recent endeavors. You speak of unity, yet you risk empowering those who do not know their place. The commoners are stirred, and it could lead to unrest." "Let me remind you, my lord," I replied, keeping my voice steady. "It is the laughter of the commoners that has been silenced for too long. Gifts are not meant to divide, but to uplift us all. Your fears stem from envy, not truth." The tension mounted as clashing ideologies battled for dominance. As Lord Talan's voice rose, others joined in chorus, echoing his sentiments as doubt dripped from their lips like poison. "It becomes you to entertain, Jester, but let us not forget your place. We have worked hard for our status, and we cannot allow it to slip away to those who simply wish for change." I could feel the fire igniting within my heart. I stood upon the precipice of change, ready to charge forth against the winds of resistance. If our laughter is meant to radiate only within the walls of nobility, then it loses its power. It is time we recognize that our strength lies not in the division of rank, but in the shared heartbeat of every villager who calls this kingdom home. With my defense laid bare, I anticipated a counterattack, but instead I was met with silence. The solemnness hung heavily in the air, and fear washed across the faces of those around me. This moment became an inflection point, a dawning realization of the collective power we could wield as a united front. As the echoes of that moment settled, the Queen rose to speak, a voice of calm amidst the storm. "Let us not forget that laughter and joy unite us in our humanity. Our bonds will only strengthen Valoria, especially in times of uncertainty. I see it in the faces of those who have gathered. It is time we recognize our interdependence." The words rippled through the assembly, sparking murmurs of agreement as an unfamiliar energy began to uncoil grudges. The discontent that had once seemed so insurmountable was slowly extinguished by the light of understanding. But the day was not done. The shadows weren't yet vanquished. The skeptics continued to conspire, ardent in their hostility, as they plotted to undermine the bonds we had woven in recent weeks. Faced with this looming threat, I understood that we needed a strategy to counter their schemes. We called for a gathering of our own, subset of those nobles who had begun to see the potential for unity. We met in secret, determined to forge an alliance that would support our mission while shielding us against adversaries. The Queen, the King, and a few trusted nobles gathered around, creating a sanctuary of hope against the encroaching darkness. Together, we must fortify our foundation, the Queen urged, her voice steady and resolute. We need to craft not just a council of jest, but a council of allies who stand ready to combat those who wish to sow discord. A flame ignited within me once again, and I took a moment to gather the thoughts swirling in my mind. Let us not merely resist, but also expand. For every jest, let us share a tale of triumph. Our strength lies not just in our hearts, but in our voices together. We can bind our kingdom with laughter and understanding. The room bristled with determination. Ideas flowed like wine, each ember sparking another. Our allies rallied behind me, and we began devising ways to amplify the voice of unity while simultaneously stoking the fires of laughter that had begun to blossom across Valoria. Weeks of strategizing led us to an event we called the Gathering of Unity. We planned a grand festival in the center of our kingdom, the kind of event to bring together the nobles and the commoners, to reinforce our shared experiences and joy. But also, it was a show of strength that would affirm our bonds against the whispers of discontent. The day of the gathering approached, and excitement surged through the air. Banners were hung, decorations adorned the streets, and laughter echoed in every corner. Musicians played joyous melodies, and friends gathered to share tales, casting aside the shadows of doubt. As we stepped into the heart of the festival, I stood before a grand stage, ready to embrace my role as a jester, not just to amuse, but to inspire. The crowd stood before me, a wave of diverse faces all intertwined in a tapestry of unity as their voices melded into a single melody, celebrating the laughter that echoed through our hearts. "Welcome," I cried, my voice ringing clear across the gathering. "Today, we stand shoulder to shoulder in the spirit of unity. Let our laughter join as a symphony of hope, resilience, and the promise of a brighter future." The crowd erupted into applause. As the laughter surged, I could feel the connection grow deeper, an elixir of shared joy that would challenge the seeds of resentment behind the castle walls. This day was not merely a festival, it was a testament to the power we held together. Yet, as the laughter flourished, I knew full well that the shadows would not surrender quietly. They would strike when the moment felt weakest, determined to sabotage our notions of unity. And so, I steeled myself, unafraid of the absurd challenges that lay ahead. It was my newfound strength, the strength of laughter shared, allies gathered, and hope ignited that would continue to guide us. Just as the festival reached its height, I felt the atmosphere shift. Tension filtered through the crowd, an unseen force lacing the jubilant celebrations with uncertainty. I scanned the sea of faces, sensing an ominous presence lurking at the edge of our joy. Suddenly, a commotion erupted from the crowd, a disruptive jolt that sliced through the warmth encasing our gathering. It became clear that adversaries had taken their opportunity. Their schemes sought to undermine everything we had built. "Where are the fools who play at ruling?" a voice shouted, echoing through the mass of people. "Your laughter is nothing but an act. The true heart of Valoria lies with those who wield power, and you, Jester, must be silenced." Outrage coursed through me as I faced the figure stepping from the shadows of familiar adversary, Lord Talan, standing defiantly, eyes flashing with animosity. Behind him, a small contingent of nobles, their faces a mixture of contempt and fury, gathered. Panic swept through the crowd, instantly disrupting the jubilant atmosphere. Gasps echoed as the reality of our moment shattered. The shadow of dissent had arrived to confront the very essence of our unity. But rather than descend into chaos, I felt fire in my heart, a spark ignited by laughter, shared and resilience gained. "Wait, let us not forget what binds us," I called, my voice rising above the tumult. "We gathered today not just to indulge in joy, but to fight together against division. Laughter is our armor, and love is our weapon." I gestured to the crowd around me, sensing their unease coiling tightly. "You have witnessed the power of our union today. A gathering of hope cannot be extinguished by the ambition of a few." Encouraged by the strength I felt surging through our collective voices, I knew I had to act swiftly. With a deep breath, I called upon the very essence of our laughter, a tool for encouragement, a weapon against fear. Let us show them that joy cannot be robbed from us. The heart of Valoria lies in us all, regardless of nobility or status. The crowd responded, rallying together, sharing expressions of defiance against the mocking force that sought to sow discord. I felt the energy swell. Laughter and applause began to rise, intertwining with the resolve of everyone present. The determination coursing through me transformed us from mere spectators to a tide of collective strength, ready to embrace the challenge. In the face of opposition, we rallied and began to laugh, not just for amusement, but as an act of defiance, a celebration of fortitude and unity. Together, we formed a shield built upon shared experiences, rejoicing in the power that lay in embracing our differences rather than letting envy divide us. As the storm of discontent surged forward, we stood together against it, bracing ourselves against the winds of uncertainty. The echoes of laughter rose high, drowning out the voice of Lord Talan and his accomplices, and embedding itself deep within the walls of our kingdom. And thus, emboldened by our shared laughter and resilience, we took our stand, vowing that the shadows would not steal our joy or extinguish the fire we had ignited. We would wield our laughter as a weapon, uniting our voices against the darkness. If this resonates with you, if you find the rhythm of our journey compelling, then stand with us. Subscribe to the Medieval Stories channel, where laughter and unity echo through the ages. Let us journey together, echoing stories of resilience and the power of light against the shadows. Until then, let your laughter shine bright as we walk this path of history. As the laughter swelled around the gathering, I could feel the palpable energy pulsing through the crowd. The villagers and nobles stood side by side, united in their defiance against the shadows that sought to tear us apart. With every jest and every applause, the foundation of our unity strengthened, a fortress of camaraderie built on the laughter that echoed through the gathered throng. Lord Talan, realizing that his initial surprise had backfired, shifted his approach. He motioned to his allies, casting glances of irritation towards the escalating enthusiasm that surrounded me. "This laughter is but a distraction," he shouted, trying to maintain control over a situation spiraling beyond his grasp. "A house built on jest will collapse when the first storm arrives." I seized the moment, stepping forward to address the crowd once more. But what is a storm if not a reminder of the strength found in unity? I rallied, my heart racing with fervor. While shadows may threaten, it is in the strength of our connections that we find resilience. Together, we can weather any storm. The crowd erupted in cheers, their voices a chorus of agreement that resonated against the twilight sky. I could feel the tides shifting as the villagers and nobles alike found solace in shared resolve. Laughter became a shield, a bright force that protected us against the encroaching darkness of doubt. With determination burning brightly in their hearts, the people began to chant, "Unity, laughter, strength." The rhythmic cadence rose, a powerful affirmation echoing far beyond our gathering. It was a declaration that the voice of the common people would no longer be silenced. The laughter that had once been viewed as frivolous was now our shared anthem. As the energy in the air intensified, I spotted a few nobles, those who remained loyal to the spirit of the council, stepping forward to join me on the makeshift stage. They raised their hands, encouraging the crowd to join in on our chant, to fortify our message of unity. The assembly responded, voices intertwining into an unstoppable wave of fervor. "Let us turn this festival into a stand," I urged, anchoring my words with the laughter that danced through the crowd. "For today, we proclaim that our laughter is not merely an act of folly, but a testament to our will to come together, to thrive against adversities. We honor the spirit of the Realma spirit, defined by our togetherness." The energy surged beyond expectation. Our collective laughter swept through the crowd, stitching together our disparate backgrounds, intertwined with threads of resilience and camaraderie. As I looked out upon the faces around me, I could see the transformation happening. Hearts, once heavy with resentment, now began to lighten beneath the warmth of shared joy. Yet, amid the laughter and jubilation, I continued to cast wary glances towards the edges of the gathering, ever mindful of the antagonistic forces that had marred our celebration. I knew that our enemies would not yield quietly. They thrived in the shadows where uncertainty festered. Lord Talan, fueled by desperation, was not yet finished. "Do not be fooled by this raucous. You lay your hopes on a fool's merriment," he spat, his voice sharp, yet revealing a hint of panic. "The jest will lose its flavor, and when it does, you will see the threat of true power unveiled." With that remark, I felt the tension ebb slightly in the crowd, the laughter wavering as murmurs spread like ripples. Fear crept back into the faces of some, those still susceptible to doubt. It became clear that we needed not just the strength of laughter, but of action. I took a deep breath, reminding myself of the power we wielded when united. "Do not let the fears of a few undermine the spirit we have built together," I proclaimed fiercely. "Let us stand as one. This gathering is a powerful declaration that we are more than just nobility or commoners. We are the heart of Valoria." Suddenly, a voice from the crowd interrupted, ringing out with clarity. "What will you do to protect our laughter? What assurances do we have that we can stand together? What if shadows do return?" Sensing the vulnerability lingering in the air, I decided to counter with bold action. "Together, we will forge a council where every voice is heard, where laughter is not merely an escape but an assurance. I propose a new path of forum where our people can bring their grievances, their ideas, and their laughter." As I spoke, a palpable wave of hope washed over the crowd, their collective interest peaked. If laughter was the foundation of our connection, transparency would be the tower we built upon it. "Each village, each noble will participate," I declared. "We shall convene regularly, celebrating not just our victories, but confronting our fears as well. The council will act as a beacon of unity against the darkness." A murmur of excitement rippled through the crowd. The possibility of a structured voice for their hopes and dreams fueled a renewed spirit. "Together, we can build a stronger Valoria," I continued, stoking the fire of enthusiasm burning brightly around us. "Together, we can ensure that our laughter will never be a fleeting endeavor, but a lasting legacy. Let us return to our homes feeling empowered, not as a fleeting moment, but as the birth of change." The idea of a council struck a chord. As I spoke, faces that once held concern now transformed into expressions of hope and determination. Friends reached for each other's hands. Brothers embraced in shared strength. And amid it all, joy returned to the gathering. But Just as the atmosphere shifted in our favor, the tension on the edges remained. Lord Talan and his faction exchanged nervous glances, realizing that their attempts to undermine us were faltering. They were wary now, sensing momentum slip through their fingers. Yet, desperation breeds treachery. As I continued my speech, Talan raised his voice, desperation permeating his words. "This is folly. You think this mirth will protect you from unrest? Who will listen when chaos reigns?" His tone dripped with venom, seeking to distract and divide. True power lies not in the absence of chaos, but within our ability to manage it together, I retorted, diffusing the tension with unwavering confidence. Let us show Valoria that laughter can arise amid turmoil. Let us prove that unity gives us strength in times of discord. In that moment, I reached out once more to the audience, eyes sparkling with the fervor I felt in my heart. Let us make a promise to each other today, that beyond laughter, we shall embody unity fixed in our resolve and unwavering against the shadows. For laughter builds bridges, empowers souls, and nurtures the very essence of our kingdom. The crowd began to roar once more, and Lord Talan was drowned in the sound of a kingdom uplifted. A renewed determination surged around me, propelling us forward into our mission. Cheers and applause echoed through the plaza as villagers embraced one another, rejoicing not just in the spirit of celebration, but declaring their intent to forge a path together. The tides had shifted, however. I was acutely aware that we could not let our guard down. The shadows still lurked, hidden but present, and Lord Talan and his faction would undoubtedly attempt to regain influence. As I concluded my speech, the enthusiasm of our allies rang loud, each voice echoing with affirmation. We shall stand together, our laughter a beacon against the encroaching darkness. The gathering of unity proved to be a powerful testament, not just to our strength, but to the unwavering spirit that resides within every heart in Valoria. Together, we had forged a bond, armed with nothing but laughter and determination, resisting the shadows that conspired to hold us back. If the spirit of our journey resonates with you, if you sense the pulse of unity and the power of shared laughter, then I invite you to join us. Subscribe to the Medieval Stories channel, where echoes of laughter ripple through the ages. Let us continue to walk this path, exploring tales of resilience and bonds that transcend time. Until our next adventure, let your laughter illuminate the darkness, guiding us all toward a brighter future. As the dust began to settle from the gathering of unity, Valoria felt transformed. The spirit of laughter and shared purpose rippled through the kingdom like the joyous waves of a spring tide. I had witnessed firsthand the powerful shift as the noble houses and common folk began to redefine their relationships, but I was well aware that maintaining this balance would be the true test. In the wake of the celebrations, I found myself frequently reflected upon the strength we had found that day. Noble houses dispatched messengers, sending word of our counsel to distant realms. It was a call for allies to join our movement. Interest swelled quickly, and I felt the hearts of many surge with hope as they realized they could be a part of something greater than themselves. Upon returning to the castle, I met once again with the king and queen, who were buoyed by the positive response their kingdom was experiencing. "Fabian, you've given them hope," the queen declared, her eyes sparkling. "This council you've imagined could reshape our kingdom." As we discussed the formation of this new council, ideas began to flow like wine, each one more compelling than the last. "We need representation," I stated, pacing the grand chamber as I spoke. "Commoners and nobles alike must have a voice. Every village, every estate should have representation that can bring forth the aspirations and concerns of our people. The king nodded, taking in my words with intention. Perhaps we could gather representatives from each village, he suggested, including those who have participated in the Days of Laughter. Their voices could be invaluable as we forge ahead. I could feel the excitement building. We were on the cusp of creating a new legacy. We could also lay out guidelines to ensure that the council remains focused on fostering unity and avoiding the distractions of competition and power struggles, I added. The Queen's face lit up when she caught the vision of our potential. Let us call upon those with wisdom among the common folk, she declared. We must remind them that their contributions are just as vital and meaningful as any nobles. Days turned into weeks, and soon the council was coming to fruition. Noble lords and ladies met with village elders beneath canopy tents, adorned in vibrant colors. Within those tents, laughter mingled with the sound of carving wood and baking in ovens as we prepared for our inaugural assembly. As the day drew near, excitement filled the air. I found myself at the center of it all, encouraging community members to step forward, offering their stories and clarifying their hopes. The echoes of our journey thus far resonated in my heart, the laughter of Eldridge, the bonds forged among villagers, and the very essence of unity that the gathering had awakened. Finally, the day of our first council arrived. The atmosphere infused with anticipation. Families from every corner of Valoria gathered in the assembly hall, a grand structure draped in bright banners, laughter wrapping around every soul present. The hall was filled with people and nobles adorned in their finest attire. Common folk proudly wearing their humble clothes, all ready to lift their voices as one. As I stood at the helm, preparing to address the gathering, I felt a wave of gratitude wash over me. The energy crackled. Together, we were poised to redefine the very essence of our kingdom. Welcome, my friends, I called, my voice ringing clear and bright. Today marks a pivotal moment in the history of Valoria. We stand together, noble and common, to reinforce the bonds that unite Usur, laughter, our struggles, and our shared aspirations. The crowd erupted with applause, and I felt strengthened by their fervor. Smiles radiated from every corner of the hall, and I could see hope reflected in their eyes. We gather here not just to share stories, but to build a brighter future for all. This council aims to be a beacon for every villager, every lord, so that our voices may echo in harmony throughout Valoria. I proclaimed with conviction. Flashes of excitement rippled through the crowd as I signaled the start of the proceedings. Every village would be invited to share the challenges they faced, and we would seek to find collective solutions. It was imperative that this council remained focused on our community, continually driven by our laughter and commitment to one another. Representatives began to rise and tell their stories. A farmer spoke of his struggle to secure a fair price for his crops. A merchant discussed the trouble of transporting goods on treacherous paths. Elders spoke of the need for their wisdom to guide future generations. With each story shared, I felt unity swell deeper. The sound of collective voices replaced my anxiety, shifting the atmosphere towards strength. The laughter and joy we had built upon were no longer fragile. They were fortified with purpose and courage. As discussions unfolded, it became clear that our council was gaining momentum. Ideas flourished and resolve strengthened. We must build new roads for our merchants, ensuring they can transport their goods easily. We must offer support for our farmers so they can thrive and feed not just our villages, but every corner of Valoria. One noble cried out, "Let us create a cooperative that pools our resources." Another suggested amid laughter and nods of agreement. "Together, we can accomplish great things." With our laughter steering us forward, I facilitated lively debates, each representative offering solutions that pushed us toward a collective vision. The council began to mold itself into a living entity, an organization built on empathy, laughter, and respect that reflected the spirit of Valoria. As the council convened, I sensed a palpable change sweep through the air. Our discussions naturally turned toward the fears that still lingered, the shadows that fell just beyond our grasp. "What of those who resist this unity?" someone asked, encompassing the uncertainty that my heart had not forgotten. I called upon the lessons we learned, knowing that shadows can only thrive in silence. We must remember that laughter can reveal truths and dispel fear. Our enemies may linger in the dark, but with every shared moment, we shed light on our connections. Growing bolder in my conviction, I added, "Let our laughter disarm their intent. Instead of viewing the shadows as enemies, we must strive to understand their grievances. In that understanding, we may discover the roots of their envy and begin to mend the fractures in our community." Encouraged by this insight, the council continued to thrive, laughter and ideas flowing freely. We secured agreements to create community gatherings across Valoria, where even those from opposing factions could come together to share stories, aspirations, and laughter. As the sun began to set outside the hall, I felt deep within my soul that the foundation of our unified kingdom was being laid before my very eyes. I watched noble and common folk joined hand in hand, shaping a brighter future, together transforming Valoria into a tapestry woven with shared experiences and an unshakable commitment to one another. But whispers of dissent would not vanish. Shadows lingered just beyond. I felt a tug in my heart as I understood that our journey was only just beginning. Days turned into weeks, and the council pushed forward. The trajectory of Valoria indeed altered. Together, we ventured to newfound heights, fueled by laughter and camaraderie, attracting delegations from distant lands curious about our movement. Nobles from across the kingdom began to express interest, eager to learn from our success. I welcomed this newfound interest with both pride and caution. While it could signal support, it was also a reminder of the envious eyes still watching, seeking to undermine our progress. As representatives traveled to spread the message of our united spirit, I began preparing for a larger festival, a celebration of our achievements to welcome the neighboring realms, but also to underscore our commitment to transparency. It was essential that we remain vigilant, even as our laughter shone bright. The festival, titled the Festival of Unity, aimed to demonstrate to all who gathered that our kingdom was cemented in joyful resilience. Culture, music, and laughter would entwine like vines, wrapping every visitor in the warmth of Valoria's spirit. With noble lords and ladies as well as common folk, it would serve as an invitation to participate in our journey. In the lead-up to the festival, we advertised across village squares, reaching out to every corner of Valoria. I could feel a whirl of excitement as anticipation built. The energy in the air hummed with the promise of joy. Villagers began preparing performances filled with traditional songs, storytellers practicing their tales, and craftsmen crafting colorful decorations to adorn the festival grounds. But even amid this fervor, I couldn't shake the feeling of unrest. The shadows of dissent were still at play, As we neared the festival, I began receiving word of whispered conspiracies, rumors, once dismissed, now swirled closer to reality. Other lords, those wary of our movement, met in secret to plot against our progress. On the eve of the festival, with a heart heavy with foreboding, I gathered with the Queen and the King beneath the marble archway of the castle. "We must prepare for anything," I urged, looking into their concerned eyes. "The shadows do not take kindly to change." The Queen nodded, returning my gaze with both determination and fear. "Together, we will face whatever may come, Fabian. We have brought joy back to Valoria, and we cannot allow the shadows to dim our light." It was a quiet resolve that filled the air, one that nestled into my heart like a soothing balm. The next day, we would stand resilient in the face of unfolding chaos. If laughter had the power to ignite a movement, then maybe it could also defend the unity we had stitched together. The dawn of the festival broke, sunbeams cascading down to paint the streets of Valoria with warmth and vibrancy. The excitement was palpable. Vendors lined the streets, displaying colorful wares, and the aroma of baked goods hung sweetly in the air. Children laughed, and families strolled hand in hand, their faces beaming as we gathered for the inaugural moments of celebration. As I stepped onto the stage, the crowd's energy swelled like a wave against the shore, ready to crash over us in joyous celebration. "Welcome, one and all, to the Festival of Unity," I proclaimed, a smile illuminating my face. "Today, we celebrate not just our laughter, but the bonds that tie us together as the heart of Valoria." The roar of applause filled the air, laughter rippling through the crowd as musicians began to play. I basked in this moment. The culmination of our journey echoed in each heartbeat of joy surrounding me. We had transformed shadows into unity. We had woven purpose into every laugh. As the festival unfolded, the sound of music mixed with the laughter of friends and family, cheers echoed, and dances erupted across the plaza. Yet, even amid this festive spirit, a haunting sense of awareness tugged at the corners of my mind. As the sun dipped low in the sky, painting the world in hues of gold and crimson, a distant rumbling grew louder, a dark cloud forming on the horizon, both figuratively and literally. I turned to the King and Queen, who stood resolute beside me, observing the shifting atmosphere. With every passing moment, I sensed tension bleeding back into the celebration. The joy we had cultivated began to flicker as whispers of dissent seemed to rise amidst enough chatter to separate joy from festivity. "Fabian," the Queen said, surprising me with the seriousness in her tone, "we have prepared for the possibility of unrest. But I fear that the shadows have not remained idle. We must keep our voices strong and our spirits higher than ever." The crowd continued to pulse with laughter, but as I looked into the faces around me, I began to sense a division, a few lords and ladies gathering in clusters, their eyes flickering toward the growing darkness around them. "Unity is our shield," I reminded those gathered, stepping to the edge of the stage. "Together, we rise against fear. Let our laughter be the anthem against chaos." The gathering erupted into renewed cheers, yet a palpable unease lingered in the air. I knew the shadows were watching, waiting for the moment to strike, attesting our resolve. As the last rays of daylight surrendered to twilight, the tension grew. I could feel the eyes of dissent fall upon me, narrowing in suspicion, seeking to delegitimize our celebration. Talan, upon hearing the rising tumult, appeared dangerously determined. Suddenly, a shout pierced through the evening laughter like a slashing blade. "You celebrate while others suffer. This foolery will not shield you from the truth." The crowd hushed, aware that the voice belonged to none other than Lord Talan himself, emerging from the shadows with a band of disgruntled nobles at his back. His disdainful gaze swept across the plaza, feeding upon the tension hanging like a cloak. "Today is not a day of celebration," he continued, his contemptuous voice rising to create a wall of fury. "You think laughter can obscure the cracks in your unity? Look around. Your counsel is frail, and your voices will mean nothing when you face true adversity." Gasps echoed from the crowd as doubt began to claw its way back into the hearts of the people. I could feel their tension, their anxiety mounting. This was the moment Lord Talan had been waiting for. The crux where disunity could fester and drown us in fear. Yet I would not yield without a fight. Clenching my fists, I stepped forward, heart racing, prepared to defend the unity we had forged. "Talan!" I shouted, my voice booming across the silent crowd. "Your words twist truth into fear, seeking to splinter our resolve. It is because of your greed that this kingdom has suffered impassively. Today, we embrace one another, to challenge discord with joy, to unite toward the purpose of a brighter future." Cheers broke out, a wave of protest against Lord Talan's venom, but he stood resolute, turning to the nobles by his side, encouraging their grim faces to scowl. "We are strong as our weakest thread," I cried, my heart pounding. "But we shall not falter. Your voice carries no weight here. It is laughter and love that light our way. Together, we have risen against despair. Together, we will ward off the shadows that threaten." In that moment, I could see the tension beginning to give way. Doubt cracked, splintering the unease Lord Talan had instilled. As the shadows grew darker around us, I sensed the power we held. Laughter intertwined with resolve, spinning a tapestry of unity. Let your voices ring out, dear friends. Let your laughter be the light that dispels this darkness. Then, the unexpected happened. The crowd erupted. Laughter, joy, and melodies intertwined as they joined me in roaring support, holding the laughter aloft against the gnawing shadows. Yet, I could feel the simmering anger beneath to quell it. Lord Talan knew he needed to act. "This will not be tolerated," he yelled, a storm brewing within him. "I will not stand idly by as you tarnish our kingdom with your deception." With renewed fury, he attempted to rally his loyalists, pushing against the current of joy before him. "My friends, do not be fooled. This farce will lead to our downfall." Yet, instead of giving way, the crowd strengthened, fearing less, responding more. Voices began to rise in a mesmerizing flow, an uproar of harmony against the dark. "Unity, laughter, strength," they chanted. The power of our shared spirit formed an unbreakable chain. With unwavering resolve, I turned once more to Talan, voicing my challenge. "If you seek to sow fear in our hearts, know that laughter shall be our shield against it. Step forth and challenge our resolve." His face twisted in rage, but I could see the shift that had begun to take root. The shadows recoiled as the gathered assembly pushed forward together, intent on preserving the unity we had forged. As he realized the strength of our connection, the tension in his features twisted between anger and desperation. This was a moment of reckoning, not just for me, but for the heart of Valoria itself. I stood on that stage, embodying the very essence of our tapestria Jester, ready to defy shadows, knowing laughter is our greatest ally. Today, we stand united as the heart of Valoria, our voices ringing clear. Let us show Talan that our resolve will not yield to fear or envy, but instead illuminate the path of joy. that lies ahead. The crowd erupted once more, their resolute voices blending together into one powerful declaration. Lord Talan, realizing the wall of defiance forming around him, stood paralyzed in disbelief as the festival's spirit surged forward. In that moment, we transformed into something Morea's symphony of laughter, a testament to our resilience and the threads that tied us together growing ever stronger. But even as we celebrated our unity, I recognized that this was just the beginning. Shadows had not vanished. Their whispers would persist in eager ears, plotting anew. Yet, fear wielded against laughter would never prevail while our hearts beat as one. As the festival raged forth, we held fast to our newfound strength, promising ourselves that our laughter would shield us from whatever darkness sought to obscure our unity. While challenges loomed, it was our laughter that let us gather under the light, reminding us of the power present in the bonds we had forged. Before the echo of the festival faded into memory, I knew this moment would define Valoria. Laughter would rise, collective and fierce, unraveling the shadows that dared to challenge the light within us. And so, I call upon you now, if you are moved by this tale, by the spirit that laughter brings forth, join us. Subscribe to the Medieval Stories channel, where we uncover the journey of resilience and joy that echoes through the ages. Together, let us walk this path, uplifting each other and sharing the laughter that unites us all. Until our next adventure, may your laughter light your way against any shadows that dare encroach.